Dr. Elena Vasquez never thought she would be standing in a room with actual aliens. 3 months ago, she was just another scientist working late nights in her lab, studying how different species communicate. Now she was part of the most important meeting in human history. The space station felt cold and empty around her. Everything was white and silver, built specially for this moment when humans would meet the Zephyrians face to face. For the first time, Elena adjusted her blue uniform and tried to calm her racing heart. She wasn't supposed to be the main person here. That was Ambassador Chen's job. Elena was just there to help understand the aliens better. For months, they had been talking to the Zephyrians through computers and translators. The conversations were formal and careful. Every word was checked and double-checked. The Zephyrians seemed advanced and powerful, controlling whole sections of space that humans had only dreamed of reaching, but they had never met in person. Until now, Elena looked around the meeting room. It was bigger than a basketball court, with cameras everywhere recording this historic moment. The other humans in the room looked nervous too. Some were diplomats in fancy suits. Others were scientists like her. Everyone knew that one wrong word could end these peace talks forever. The lights suddenly dimmed, and a soft humming filled the air. Elena felt the hair on her arms stand up. Something was happening. A blue light appeared in the center of the room, growing brighter and bigger. The humming got louder, almost like music, but different than anything Elena had ever heard. Then, she appeared. The alien queen materialized right in front of them, and Elena's breath caught in her throat. She had seen pictures and video calls, but nothing had prepared her for seeing Queen Lyrali in person. She was tall, maybe 7 feet, with skin that seemed to glow from within. The light moved across her skin like waves, shifting from silver to deep purple and back again. Her face was similar to a human's, but more angular, with high cheekbones and a strong jawline. But it was her eyes that made Elena stare. They were large and dark, like looking into deep space filled with stars. They seemed ancient and wise, holding secrets about the universe that humans couldn't even imagine. Queen Lyrali wore robes that flowed around her like liquid metal. They changed colors as she moved, sometimes matching her skin, sometimes contrasting with it. Everything about her screamed royalty and power. She commanded attention without saying a word. The other Zephyrians appeared behind her, but Elena barely noticed them. She couldn't look away from the queen. As a scientist, she was fascinated by the biology, the way the light moved under her skin, how her body seemed to bend light around it. But as a human being, she was simply amazed by how beautiful this alien woman was. Ambassador Chen stepped forward and began the formal greeting they had practiced 100 times. He spoke slowly and clearly, following the exact protocol the Zephyrians had requested. The queen listened, but her expression didn't change. She seemed bored, maybe even annoyed. Elena found herself studying the queen's face, trying to read her emotions. It was her job to understand how aliens thought and felt. She watched how the queen's skin color shifted slightly when the ambassador mentioned trade agreements. She noticed how the queen's eyes moved when they talked about sharing technology. Then it happened. Queen Lyrali turned and looked directly at Elena. Their eyes met across the room, and Elena felt like an electric shock ran through her body. The queen's eyes widened in surprise, then narrowed in anger. The purple light under her skin grew brighter and more intense. "How dare you even look at me? Human!" The queen's voice filled the entire room without her seeming to raise it. It had a musical quality, but carried clear anger and authority. Every person in the room froze. Elena realized that everyone was staring at her. The ambassador looked terrified. The other diplomats had gone pale. Even the Zephyrian guards behind the queen seemed tense. Elena understood that she had done something terribly wrong, but she wasn't sure what. She had been looking at the queen, yes, but wasn't that normal? Humans always looked at each other when they talked. How else were you supposed to show you were paying attention? But clearly, for the Zephyrians, this was a major insult. The silence stretched on. Elena could hear her own heartbeat. She knew that whatever she said next could determine whether humans and Zephyrians became friends or enemies. The weight of two entire civilizations seemed to rest on her shoulders. But looking at the queen's face, even angry as it was, Elena couldn't help but think how incredible she looked. The way her emotions played across her features, how her skin responded to her feelings, the intelligence in her eyes even when they flashed with anger. Elena had spent her whole career studying different forms of life, but she had never seen anything as fascinating and beautiful as this alien queen. Without thinking, Elena smiled. It was a genuine, warm smile that she couldn't hold back even in this tense moment. "Because you're beautiful," she said simply. The words came out before Elena could stop them. They weren't diplomatic or carefully chosen. They weren't what she was supposed to say according to any protocol. They were just honest and true. The reaction was immediate. The other humans looked horrified. Ambassador Chen's face went completely white. The Zephyrian guards moved closer to their queen, ready for trouble. But Queen Lyrale just stared at Elena. The angry purple light under her skin faded to a soft silver. Her eyes widened again, but this time with surprise rather than anger. For several long seconds, nobody moved or spoke. Elena realized that her simple, honest answer had changed everything in that room. She didn't know if it was for better or worse, but she could feel that this moment would be remembered long after everyone present was gone. The first time a human had called an alien beautiful and meant it. The next morning, Elena woke up in her small room on the space station feeling like she was in trouble. Big trouble. The kind of trouble that could end her career, and maybe even start a war between two planets. She sat on the edge of her bed, holding her head in her hands. What had she been thinking? You don't just tell an alien queen she's beautiful, especially when you're supposed to be representing all of humanity. But the words had come out so naturally, like she was talking to a friend instead of the most powerful being in the Zephyrian Empire. Her door chimed, and Ambassador Chen walked in without waiting for permission. His usually calm face looked stressed and tired. Elena could tell he hadn't slept much either. "Elena, we need to talk," he said, sitting down across from her. "Do you understand what happened yesterday?" Elena nodded slowly. "I broke some kind of rule, didn't I?" Looking at her directly. "It's worse than that," Chen said, rubbing his forehead. "In Zephyrian culture, direct eye contact with royalty is forbidden unless you're their equal or you've done something incredibly brave for their people. What you did should have ended everything. They should have left immediately and never spoken to us again." Elena felt her stomach drop. "So why didn't they? That's what nobody understands." Chen said, "After you spoke, Queen Lyrale didn't storm out. She didn't order us to leave. She just stood there staring at you for what felt like forever. Then she said something to her advisors in their language that made them all look shocked." Elena remembered that moment. The way the queen's skin had changed from angry purple to soft silver. The way her eyes had searched Elena's face like she was trying to solve a puzzle. "What did she say?" Elena asked. "We don't know exactly. Our translators are still working on it. But this morning, we got a message from the Zephyrian ship. They want to continue the talks, and they specifically requested that you stay as part of our team." Elena blinked. "They want me to stay after I insulted their queen." "That's just it," Chen said, "according to our cultural experts. What you did was more than an insult. It was like, imagine if an alien came to Earth and walked up to the president and patted him on the head. That's how serious this was." Elena winced. "Great. So I'm a walking disaster." "But here's the strange part," Chen continued, instead of being angry. "Queen Lyrale seems interested in you. Our linguist, Dr. Rodriguez, thinks your comment confused her more than offended her." Over the next few days, Elena learned just how much she had misunderstood about Zephyrian culture. Dr. Rodriguez, a small woman with thick glasses who had spent years studying alien languages, explained it to her over coffee in the station's cafeteria. "See, humans compliment each other's appearance all the time," Rodriguez said. "We say someone looks nice. We comment on their clothes, their hair. It's normal for us. But for Zephyrians, physical appearance is considered, how do I put this, shallow?" "Shallow?" Elena asked. "They evolved past caring about how things look on the outside. They value intelligence, achievements, contributions to society. To them, commenting on someone's physical appearance is like, well, imagine if someone ignored all your scientific work and only talked about your shoes. Elena thought about this, so when I called her beautiful, she thought I was being superficial. Worse, Rodriguez said, in their culture, talking about someone's physical appearance is very personal. You only do it with family members or very close friends by calling her beautiful. You didn't just break protocol. You spoke to her like you were intimate friends. Elena nearly choked on her coffee. Oh no. So I basically acted like we were best friends when we just met. Something like that. But here's the interesting part. Instead of being offended, she seems curious about why you did it. She's been asking questions about human customs, specifically about how we express appreciation and respect. The real shock came 3 days later when Elena received a personal message from Queen Lyrale herself. It arrived on her computer terminal while she was reviewing reports about Zephyrian technology. The message was short but written in careful English. Dr. Vasquez, I would like to understand your species' concept of beauty. Would you be willing to teach me about human customs? I believe there is much we can learn from each other. Elena stared at the message for a long time. The Queen wanted to learn from her. After everything that had happened, she spent an hour crafting her reply, choosing each word carefully. She explained that humans often notice beauty as a way of showing respect and interest. She wrote about how appreciating someone's appearance didn't mean ignoring their intelligence or achievements. For humans, she explained, beauty and intelligence weren't opposites. They could exist together. The Queen's response came quickly. This is fascinating. In our society, we were taught that focusing on appearance prevents us from seeing true worth, but perhaps we have missed something important. I would like to continue this conversation in person. Elena's hand shook as she read those words. The Queen wanted to meet with her again. Privately this time, Ambassador Chen was thrilled when Elena told him. The other diplomats saw it as a breakthrough. Finally, they were making real progress with the Zephyrians, but Elena felt nervous. She was just a scientist who studied how different species communicated. She wasn't trained for diplomacy or cultural exchange. What if she made another mistake? What if she said something wrong again, and this time the Queen really did get angry? The night before their scheduled meeting, Elena couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about Queen Lyrale's eyes, the way they had looked both ancient and curious at the same time. She thought about how the Queen's skin had changed colors with her emotions, something Elena had never seen in any species before. Elena realized that her comment about beauty hadn't just broken a rule. It had opened a door between two very different worlds. The Queen wasn't just curious about human customs, she was curious about Elena herself. And despite her nervousness, Elena found herself curious about the Queen too. Maybe this wouldn't be a disaster after all. Maybe, just maybe, it would be the beginning of something incredible. Elena walked into the research lab feeling like her heart might jump out of her chest. The room was different from the formal meeting chamber where she first met Queen Lyrale. This space was filled with scientific equipment, computers, and displays showing data from both human and Zephyrian research projects. Queen Lyrale was already there, standing near a large window that looked out into space. She had changed from her formal robes into something simpler, a fitted outfit that still shimmered with that strange light, but seemed more practical for working. When she turned to face Elena, her expression was curious rather than royal. And distant Dr. Vasquez, the Queen said, and Elena noticed her accent had gotten better since their first meeting. Thank you for agreeing to work with me. Elena tried to bow or curtsy or do something formal, but Queen Lyrale held up her hand. Please, there is no need for ceremony here. I am here as a scientist, not as a queen. You may call me Lyrale. That simple gesture changed everything. Elena relaxed her shoulders and smiled. Then please, call me Elena. They spent their first day together reviewing each other's research. Elena showed Lyrale her work on how different species communicate, not just through words but through body language, tone, and even smell. Lyrale shared her discoveries about quantum biology, how living things could exist in multiple states. At the same time, something that made Elena's head spin with excitement. Your species is fascinating, Lyrale said as they worked side by side at a computer terminal. You use so many different ways to express meaning. We Zephyrians focus only on direct communication. We thought anything else was unnecessary, Elena watched as Lyrale's skin shifted to a soft blue color while she concentrated on the data. Can I ask you something? Elena said. Your skin. Does it always show your emotions like that? Lyrale looked down at her hands in surprise. The blue deepened slightly. You notice that. It's hard not to, Elena said gently. Right now you're blue, which seems to happen when you're thinking hard. Yesterday, when you were annoyed with your advisor, you turned a bit orange, and when you're happy or curious, you're more silver. Lyrale stared at Elena with those deep, star-filled eyes. Most Zephyrians learn to control this from childhood. It is considered indisciplined to let emotions show so clearly. But it's beautiful, Elena said without thinking, then immediately. Worried she'd made another mistake. Instead of getting angry, Lyrale tilted her head. There's that word again. Beautiful. You use it so freely. Elena thought about how to explain it. For humans, beauty isn't just about how something looks. It's about connection, I guess. When I see your skin change colors, I understand what you're feeling. It makes me feel closer to you, like I can understand you better. That connection is beautiful to me. Lyrale's skin shifted to a warm gold color that Elena hadn't seen before. In our culture, showing emotions is seen as weakness. We are taught that logic and control are the highest values. But emotions aren't the opposite of logic, Elena said. They're information. They tell us what matters, what we care about, what we need to pay attention to. A species that ignores emotions might miss important data. This idea seemed to fascinate Lyrale. Over the following days, they developed a new research project together, studying how emotional communication could improve understanding between different species. Elena taught Lyrale about human expressions, how a smile could mean happiness, but also nervousness or even sadness depending on the situation. Lyrale, in return, explained the complex color language of her skin. Elena learned that the deep purple she'd seen during their first meeting wasn't just anger, it was protective. Anger, the color Zephyrians showed when they felt their dignity was threatened but weren't actually hostile. When you looked at me that first day, Lyrale said one afternoon as they calibrated some equipment together, I felt something I had never experienced before. What was that? Elena asked. Genuinely curious, seen, Lyrale said softly. Not as a queen, not as a political figure, not as a representative of my species. You looked at me as if I was just myself. It was terrifying and wonderful at the same time. Elena felt a warmth spread through her chest. That's because you are beautiful as yourself. Not because you're a queen, not because of your scientific achievements, though those are impressive too, just because of who you are. Lyrale's skin shifted through several colors quickly, gold, silver, and a new shade that looked like the aurora Elena had seen in pictures from Earth's polar regions. This concept of beauty, it is not shallow as we were taught. Not at all, Elena said. True beauty includes everything. Intelligence, kindness, strength, curiosity. When I called you beautiful that first day, I wasn't just talking about your physical appearance. I was responding to all of you. Their research began producing incredible results. They discovered that when species combine logical communication with emotional understanding, they could solve problems faster and more creatively. The data was so impressive that both human and Zephyrian scientists wanted to review their work. But Elena started noticing tension in their daily meetings with the diplomatic teams. Some of the human officials seemed uncomfortable with how much time she was spending with Lyrale. They asked questions about what they discussed, whether Elena was sharing sensitive information, whether she was being influenced by alien thinking. The Zephyrian officials seemed even more concerned. Elena couldn't understand their language, but she could see their disapproving looks when Lyrale's skin showed warm colors. During their conversations, she noticed how they spoke to their queen in sharp, formal tones that made Lyrale's shoulders tense up. One evening, As they worked late in the lab, Elena asked about it. Are you getting in trouble because of our friendship? Liralay's skin went through a complex pattern of colors, purple, orange, and a dark blue that looked almost black. Some of my advisors believe I am becoming too attached to human ways of thinking. They worry that I am forgetting what it means to be Zephyrian. Are you? Elena asked quietly. Lirale was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her skin was the soft silver that Elena now knew meant happiness. I am becoming more myself than I have ever been, whether that is more human or more Zephyrian. I do not know, but I know it feels right. Elena smiled, but she also felt a growing worry in her stomach. Their friendship was creating something beautiful and new, but it was also challenging everything both their species believed about themselves. She wondered how long they would be allowed to continue before someone decided their connection was too dangerous to the delicate peace between their worlds. Elena knew something was wrong the moment she walked into Ambassador Chen's office. 3 other officials sat around the table, their faces serious and unfriendly. Chen gestured for her to sit down, but his usual warm smile was nowhere to be seen. Elena, we need to discuss your relationship with Queen Lirale, Chen said. His voice formal and cold. Elena's stomach dropped. What about it? Our research is going incredibly well. We've made breakthroughs that could change how all species communicate with each other. One of the officials, a stern woman named Director Hayes, leaned forward. That's exactly what concerns us. You've been spending 12 hours a day with the most powerful alien in this sector of space. Some people are worried about what kind of influence she might have over you. Influence. Elena couldn't believe what she was hearing. We're working together as scientists. We're trying to build bridges between our species. Are you? Hayes asked, sliding a tablet across the table. Because these recordings suggest something different. Elena looked at the screen and felt her face go hot. It showed video of her and Lirale in the lab. But whoever had edited it had cut out all the scientific work. Instead, it showed only moments when they were laughing together, when Lirale's skin showed warm colors, when Elena touched Lirale's arm while explaining something. This looks like you're sharing secrets with an alien, Hayes said. It looks like you're being manipulated by someone who could destroy humanity if she wanted to. That's ridiculous, Elena said, her voice getting louder. Anyone watching the full recordings would see that we're doing legitimate research, whoever made this video deliberately made it look suspicious. Chen held up his hand. Elena, calm down. We're not accusing you of anything, but you have to understand how this looks to people back on Earth. A human scientist gets close to an alien queen, and suddenly that queen is learning all about our culture, our emotions, our weaknesses. Elena felt like the world was spinning around her. Lirale isn't learning about our weaknesses. She's learning about our strengths, about how connection and understanding make us better, not weaker. That's what she wants you to think, Hayes said. Elena, you're a brilliant scientist, but you're not trained in alien psychology. You don't understand how sophisticated their manipulation techniques might be. Elena stood up, her hands shaking with anger and frustration. I understand Lirale better than any of you. I've spent weeks learning about her culture, her values, her way of thinking. She's not manipulating me. She's my friend. The word friend seemed to shock everyone in the room. Hayes and the other officials exchanged glances that Elena didn't like. Elena, Chen said quietly. Do you hear yourself? You're talking about an alien queen as your friend. Don't you think that's exactly the kind of emotional attachment that could cloud your judgment? Elena wanted to argue, but she could see it was no use. These people had already made up their minds. They saw her friendship with Lirale as a threat instead of the breakthrough it really was. What do you want me to do? Elena asked. We want you to step back from the personal relationship, Hayes said. Continue the scientific work if you must, but maintain professional distance. No more private conversations. No more personal sharing. Treat her like what she is, a foreign leader who could be dangerous to humanity. Elena felt tears of frustration building in her eyes. And if I refuse, then we'll have to question whether you're still capable of representing human interests. In these negotiations, Hayes said flatly, meanwhile, on the Zephyrian ship, Lyrale was facing her own crisis. She sat in her private chambers, surrounded by her most trusted advisors. Feeling more alone than she had in years, "Your Majesty," said High Advisor Zenth, his voice cold with disapproval, "your behavior with this human has become unacceptable." Lyrale's skin flashed purple, but she kept her voice steady. "I am conducting important research that benefits both our species. You are behaving like a common citizen instead of a queen," another advisor said. "Your skin shows emotions freely. You laugh with this alien. You forget the dignity of your position." "The dignity of my position." Lyrale stood up, her skin now blazing with angry orange and red. "I am learning more about communication and understanding in these few weeks than our people have learned in centuries. This research could revolutionize how we interact with all species." "At what cost?" Zenth asked. "You have begun to value this human's opinion over the wisdom of your own advisors. You show weakness by displaying emotions. You compromise our superiority by treating an inferior species as an equal." Lyrale felt something crack inside her chest. Elena is not inferior. Humans are different from us, but that doesn't make them lesser. Their ability to connect emotionally makes them stronger in ways we never considered. The advisors looked horrified. One of them, an elderly Zephyrian named Orcs, spoke in a voice full of disgust. "You speak like one of them now. This human has corrupted your thinking. You are no longer fit to lead our people." Those words hit Lyrale like a physical blow. She had spent her entire life preparing to be a good queen for her people. She had sacrificed personal desires for duty, suppressed her emotions for the appearance of strength, made decisions based on logic rather than feelings. And now they were saying it wasn't enough. "What would you have me do?" Lyrale asked, her skin cycling through colors so quickly it was almost painful to watch. "In this relationship immediately," Zenth said, "return to proper Zephyrian behavior. Prove that you have not been compromised by human influence. And if I refuse?" Zenth's expression grew cold. "Then the Council of Minds will have to consider whether you are still capable of ruling our people." That night, Elena couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about her conversation with the officials, about how they had twisted her friendship with Lyrale into something suspicious and wrong. She thought about all the progress they had made, all the understanding they had built between their species. Around midnight, her door chimed softly. When she opened it, she found Lyrale standing in the hallway, her skin a deep, sad blue. "I cannot stay long," Lyrale said quietly, "but I needed to see you." Elena stepped aside to let her in. "What's wrong? You look upset." "My advisors believe our friendship is dangerous," Lyrale said. "They say it makes me weak, that it compromises my ability to lead." Elena felt a sharp pain in her chest. "The human officials said basically the same thing to me today. They think you're manipulating me." They sat together on Elena's small couch, both feeling the weight of their worlds pressing down on them. "Perhaps they are right," Lyrale said, her skin growing darker. "Perhaps connection between our species is too dangerous." "No," Elena said firmly. "They're wrong. What we've built isn't dangerous. It's beautiful. It's proof that understanding is possible between any two beings who are willing to really see each other." Lyrale looked at Elena with those deep, starry eyes. "But what if the price is too high? What if our friendship costs both our peoples the peace they need?" Elena didn't have an answer for that. She only knew that losing Lyrale's friendship would feel like losing a part of herself she had never known was missing. Elena stood in front of the largest gathering of humans and Zephyrians ever assembled in one place. Her hands were shaking, but she tried to keep her voice steady. This was their last chance. If this presentation failed, she would probably never see Lyrale again, and the species might lose their best opportunity for real peace. Beside her, Lyrale looked calm on the surface, but Elena could see the rapid color changes flickering under her skin: silver, blue, purple, gold, all cycling too quickly for her usual control. They had worked for 3 days straight preparing this presentation, knowing it might be their only chance to show both species what they had discovered. "Honored delegates from Earth, in the Zephyrian Empire," Elena began, looking out at the sea of faces, some human, some alien. all skeptical. 3 weeks ago, I made what many of you consider a terrible mistake. I broke protocol, ignored diplomatic rules, and spoke from my heart instead of my training. She could see Ambassador Chen in the front row, looking nervous but supportive. Director Hayes sat next to him, her expression still disapproving. On the Zephyrian side, the advisors looked like they would rather be anywhere else. But that mistake led to the most important discovery in the history of interspecies communication. Helena continued, "It led us to understand that real peace isn't built on treaties and trade agreements alone. It's built on seeing each other as individuals worthy of respect and understanding." Lyrale stepped forward, and Helena was amazed to see that the queen had stopped trying to control her skin colors. The warm gold of happiness mixed with the silver of determination, creating patterns Helena had never seen before. "When Dr. Vasquez first called me beautiful," Lyrale said, her accent making the words sound almost musical, "I was offended because I did not understand what she meant. In our culture, we were taught that focusing on physical appearance was shallow and meaningless." She paused, letting her skin shift to the soft blue of contemplation. "But I have learned that human beauty is not shallow at all. When Helena sees beauty, she sees connection, she sees worth, she sees the whole person, not just their function or their role." Helena felt her heart swell with pride and affection for her friend. Lyrale was being completely vulnerable in front of the most powerful people from both species, letting her emotions show freely for the first time in her life. "Our research has proven that emotional connection doesn't make species weak," Lyrale continued. "It makes us stronger. When we understand not just what others think, but what they feel and value, we can solve problems together that neither species could solve alone." Helena activated their presentation display, showing months of data from their joint research. "We discovered that species who combine logical analysis with emotional understanding make better decisions, create more innovative solutions, and build more stable relationships." The data was impressive. Problems that had taken human scientists months to solve were completed in days when they worked with Zephyrian logical thinking. Zephyrian research that had been stuck for years suddenly moved forward when they incorporated human creativity and intuition. "But more than that," Helena said, "we discovered that friendship between species is not just possible, it's necessary. For true peace." She looked directly at Director Hayes. "Yes, Queen Lyrale and I became friends. But that friendship didn't make me loyal to her species over humanity. It made me understand that there doesn't have to be sides. We can all be stronger together." Lyrale's skin shifted to the aurora-like pattern that Helena now knew meant deep happiness. "Helena taught me that showing emotions is not weakness. It is honesty. When I let others see what I truly feel, they can understand me better. They can trust me more." She turned to face her own advisors. "I am still your queen. I am still Zephyrian. But I am also more than I was before, because I learned to value connection as well as logic, understanding as well as control." Helena could see some of the human delegates nodding thoughtfully. Even a few of the Zephyrian advisors looked intrigued by the data they were showing. "What we're proposing," Helena said, "is a new kind of diplomatic relationship, not just formal agreements between governments, but real connections between individuals. Cultural exchange programs where humans and Zephyrians work together, learn from each other, and build friendships that will make war impossible because we'll understand each other too well to be enemies." The presentation lasted 2 hours. They showed research data, played recordings of successful joint problem-solving sessions, and demonstrated how combining human emotional intelligence with Zephyrian logical analysis created solutions that neither species had imagined before. When they finished, the room was quiet for a long moment. Then Ambassador Chen stood up and began clapping. Soon, other humans joined in. Even some of the Zephyrians made a soft humming sound that Helena had learned was their equivalent of applause. Director Hayes stood up slowly. "Dr. Vasquez, I owe you an apology. I was so focused on protecting humanity that I couldn't see you were actually building something that would protect us better than any weapon or treaty could." High Advisor Zenth approached Lyrale, his skin showing a pattern Elena had never seen before, deep blue mixed with silver. Later, Lyrali would tell her it meant respectful admiration. "Your Majesty," Zen said formally. "Perhaps there is wisdom in this new path you have shown us." 6 months later, Elena walked through the halls of the new Interspecies Cultural Center, a facility built jointly by humans and Zephyrians. She wore a badge that read Director of Cross-Species Understanding, a position created specifically for her after the success of their presentation. The center was bustling with activity. Human and Zephyrian scientists worked side by side in laboratories. Artists from both species collaborated on sculptures that seemed to glow with inner light. Children from the human family station here played games with young Zephyrians. Laughing at jokes that worked in both languages, Elena found Lyrali in their favorite spot, a garden dome that looked out into space. The queen was no longer trying to hide her emotions. Her skin showed a peaceful green that Elena had learned meant contentment. "Any regrets?" Elena asked, settling down beside her friend. Lyrali smiled, an expression she had learned from humans and now used freely. "Only that we waited so long to begin." Elena thought back to that first day, when she had looked at an alien queen and seen beauty instead of danger. One honest moment had changed everything, proving that sometimes the most important bridges are built not with technology or treaties, but with the simple courage to see others as they truly are. "You know," Elena said, "I still think you're beautiful." Lyrali's skin shifted to that warm gold color Elena loved so much. "And I finally understand what you mean when you say that." They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the stars, and knowing that somewhere out there, other species were probably having their own first contact moments. Elena hoped that when those meetings happened, someone would have the courage to speak from their heart instead of their fear, to see beauty instead of threat, to build friendship instead of walls. The universe was full of wonders waiting to be discovered. But Elena had learned that the greatest discovery of all was understanding, the kind that happened when two beings chose to truly see each other and found something beautiful in the connection they shared.